Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I want to thank you for joining us here today. We found something really interesting in Georgia that happened on January 4th with Joe Biden, and it may be illegal. Maybe. We're going to talk about that. But first, we do want to mention, if you have not been here before, our program, we do long-form political commentary. And on every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a conversation with you, where you're able to speak with us on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, if the internet overlords allow it, to be able to speak with us about the issues that are affecting us all, because we believe in the First Amendment. We hope that we will see you on Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Now, in terms of what's going on today, what we've just seen, it's being reported that yesterday, the nation is getting ready for the Georgia runoff vote. The senators, the two races in Georgia are for the senatorial seats. So we have two Democrats, we have two Republicans. If Democrats win both seats, then they will have a majority. They will have control over the Senate, the House, and the presidency, which will make it very difficult for anything to be done by Republicans to prevent them from creating a scenario similar to President Obama's situation in 2009. Not a supermajority, but a majority in the Congress. That could be bad for America. But what else is on the line? And all we need is one Republican to win, and that stops that process. So packing the courts would not happen. The repeal of the Second Amendment and the removal of the Electoral College would not happen. There's a lot of things it could affect. So it's a very important race. Very important race. And that's why Joe Biden went down yesterday to Georgia on January 4th to make the public, to try and gin up votes. Now, regardless of whether you think Biden's good or bad, whatever you may think about that, there's a question here. You see, what we saw today is it was a article from Forbes magazine, Biden's final pitch to Georgia. Vote blue and $2,000 checks will go out the door immediately. That's the quote by Jack Brewster. That's the title. So that caught our attention. So we read through this. And one of the things that was very, very interesting is if Georgians send Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler back to Washington, Biden said those checks will never go out. That if they vote for the Democrats, $2,000 stimulus checks would be sent out immediately. That didn't sound quite right when we were listening to that. So we decided we were a little confused, because that sounds like buying a vote. If you vote for X, you will get money. That's buying votes. Didn't sound right. So we said, wait a minute, maybe Forbes didn't quite get the quote. Maybe they're editorializing a bit, putting in some of the personal opinion in there. So we decided, let's look at some of the other articles about this. So we went over to Business Insider. 8 hours ago, they released their article. Biden tells Georgia voters that $2,000 stimulus checks will never arrive if Republicans win Senate runoffs. Well, again, conjecture on his part whether or not that could happen. But more importantly, we're seeing that, again, President-elect Joe Biden said Monday that Americans would receive $2,000 checks in coronavirus relief payments immediately if Georgia voted for both Democrats in the U.S. Senate runoffs. And they go further into there and they quote, during his speech in Atlanta, Biden promised that if Warnock and Ossoff won the runoffs, quote, that money will go out the door immediately to help people who are in real trouble, end quote. Okay, so that's two sources that said this. Kind of interesting. Two sources are saying that Joe Biden just promised money for votes, which is buying votes. that's illegal. Well, let's go to the third. There's got to be someone else. So let's go to the far left and let's check out none other than NBC News. And NBC, their title, in Georgia, Democrats close with populist pitch vowing $2,000 stimulus checks. What? Is this right? Well, we go and look at it, and yeah, if you're looking through this, again, quote, their election will put an end to the block in Washington on the $2,000 stimulus check, Biden said. Continuing, quote, if you send Senator Perdue and Loeffler back to Washington, those checks will never get there. It's just that simple. The power is literally in your hands, end quote. Okay. So we have three different sources that are saying Joe Biden has promised if you vote for Democrats, you will get a check. He is going to give you money if you vote for a specific political candidate. And that he is going to deny you money if you do not vote for a specific political candidate. That, to me, is buying votes. Am I misunderstanding it? Because that's what three different sources said. He said that. If you put the Democrat in, I will immediately send you money. That is a promise for payment, for a vote, for an election. That sounds troubling. So, and I know I live in New York State. Now, mind you, again, I am not a lawyer. I do not pretend to be a lawyer, but I do pay attention to laws and I do look up laws and read laws. And so that's what we did here. And in New York State, according to New York State Senate, Section 135.6, coercion in the third degree. A person is guilty of coercion in the third degree when he or she compels or induces a person to engage in conduct which the latter has a legal right to abstain from engaging in, or to abstain from engaging in conduct in which he or she has a legal right to engage, or compels or induces a person to join a group, organization, or criminal enterprise, which is, okay. But the key point here is that this is something, or to abstain from engaging in conduct in which he or she has a legal right to engage. In other words, to vote for a specific candidate. So that's in New York State. And to go even further, I believe it is under 8. Further going into there, in item 8, if a person use or abuse his or her position as a public servant by performing some act within or related to his or her official duties, or by failing or refusing to perform an official duty in such a manner as to affect some person adversely. This is coercion in New York State. So it is an abuse of power, and it is the use of power by Democrats who are elected to send out a check. And they are forcing people to vote. Otherwise, they will fail to do their duty or refuse to try and put out a $2,000 check if you don't vote for Democrats. That's what they have said. That is what Joe Biden, the head of the Democratic Party, the president-elect, apparently, that's what he has said. Okay, wait a minute. But they're not in New York State, so it doesn't really matter, right? Well, what does Georgia say? Georgia Code Title 16, Crimes and Offenses, Section 16-5-46. As used in the code section, the term coercion means, and I believe this section we are looking for is right here, under item E, causing or threatening to cause financial harm to any individual or using financial control over an individual. Let's see, if you're about to be evicted from your home, would $2,000 perhaps help pay that off? Maybe stop the eviction? And denying someone that, would that be financial harm? If you're trying to pay off your debts, if you want to buy food for your family, Would that be financial harm? That's a threat of causing financial harm. I've promised you money, but only if you do what I tell you to do. And if you don't do it, you will not get that money. And then you need that money because, you have been working because of COVID-19, because the company you worked for closed forever because of COVID-19. Yeah. Causing or threatening financial harm seems to apply. Coercion under Georgia regulations applies. But let's go any further, because under the U.S. Code, and this is coming from Cornell Law School, again, I'm not an attorney, but this is what they're saying. Under 18 U.S. Code, Section 610, coercion of political activity. It shall be unlawful for any person to intimidate, threaten, command, or coerce, or attempt to intimidate, threaten, command, or coerce any employee of the federal government as defined by various sections of the U.S. Code to engage in or not to engage in any political activity, including, but not limited to, voting or refusing to vote for any candidate. Let's stop right there. So, according to the United States government, the federal code, 18 U.S., if you try to coerce or threaten or command, go vote. Go vote for Democrats. Call it that's coercing or demanding. Go vote and you get $2,000. Sounds like coercion to me. You can call it a command if you want. You can say it's intimidating or threatening, but you can make the case. That's a crime, a federal crime of coercion of political activity. Wait a minute. It gets even deeper. By the way, you're saying, well, that's only if there are government employees involved. There are 71,000 people employed by the state of government of Georgia. There are even more people who work for the federal government. So, yeah, under the federal code, coercion of political activity, Biden is guilty. But it gets even more because under, again, from Cornell Law School, 18 U.S. Code Section 597, expenditures to influence voting. Quote, whoever makes or offers to make an expenditure to any person, either to vote or withhold his or her vote, to vote for or against any candidate, and whoever solicits, accepts, or receives such expenditures in consideration of his vote or the withholding of his vote shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. And if the violation was willful, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 2 years or both. Well, what happens if we read this a little differently? What if we read this as Joe Biden offered to make an expenditure to voters to vote for Democrats, and the Democratic candidates accepted such an expenditure and have received votes in consideration for this expenditure? That means they're guilty. They broke the law. Now, I understand something that's very interesting about this. So I've just shown you several statutes in several states and the federal government, and more importantly, in Georgia, based on the facts that we have heard from 3 different sources of media: Forbes, Business Insider, and NBC News. Joe Biden has apparently used coercion to buy votes. He is buying votes. That is a crime that is punishable on the federal side by up to 3 years, depending on which offense you want to go with, up to 3 years in jail and or fines. And no one will call him out on that. Now, mind you, I will say it for the third time, I'm not a lawyer, but I am reading the law. And the law applies. It fits. Now, would any prosecutor ever dare to take on Joe Biden, the supposed president-elect? No. Is there any court in any state that would allow this case to go forward? No, not at all. Because they are fearful. They're fearful of the backlash that would happen from the remaining members, the rest of Congress, the senators that are in place, Nancy Pelosi, their own state legislatures that would come after them for having dared to take on whatever political party's candidate, in this case, Joe Biden. The Democrats in that state, the progressives in that state would demonize anyone who would dare do this. But let's be very clear. That doesn't mean it's not a crime. It doesn't mean it should be prosecuted. Now, there may be lawyers out there who are going to tell me, Mike, you're wrong. And I would love to hear, how am I wrong? I'm sure the public would like to know, how is this not correct? Because reading the law, it means Joe Biden's a criminal. You don't have to like it. You don't have to feel good about it. The law isn't about your feelings. The law is the law. And I have to just ask you one question about this. Why isn't anyone concerned about the law? I look forward to seeing your comments on this. I hope you're going to have a great day, and we look forward to hearing from you on Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And by the way, if you did find this interesting, if you found it enjoyable, please like and subscribe. And we thank you.